How good is Stranger Things? After a massive disappointment with Game of Thrones this last season, and that's putting it politely, I haven't watched a single episode of TV until Stranger Things 3. And once I started, I literally couldn't stop. I blasted through the 8 episodes in a mere couple of days or so. It really is perhaps the most bingeable TV on at the moment. It's felt like an age since I saw the last season. Can you believe it's been close to 2 years already? But as soon as the first episode got into the swing of things, it felt like it never left. One thing for certain is definitely noticeable though. The kids, yeah, they ain't kids no more, and Mike, he's a giant compared to the others. All of our younger cast members have undergone massive transformations, and even though the boys are beginning to grow apart in their teenage years, with hormones and girls making a way into their lives, it doesn't stop Stranger Things from being able to meld together each of their stories into an overall very satisfying story arc. Some characters and their paths have it better than others, but everything just fits. Nothing felt out of place. Sure, some stories occasionally feel a little disconnected, such as Nancy and Jonathan's initial investigation bit, but all in all, it fits in with the overall story arc, and all in all, was needed for explaining some important plot points. Eleven and the gang are always going to be the central focus for the younger lot, much like Hopper and Joyce are for the adults, but every story is an important one. This year, the Mind Flayer was back. Well, in truth, it hadn't really gone anywhere at all, but now it was capturing hosts and using them to build an army, and it all started with Billy. Dacre Montgomery's smug lifeguard was the initial victim for the Mind Flayer. He was the source of the flayed, as it were, and he was the one spreading the shadow of the Mind Flayer over more and more people throughout Hawkins town. I was let down by his story last season, desperately hoping it would lead somewhere. Safe to say this season erased those worries early on, and Montgomery proved himself to be up there with some of the best actors and actresses on the show. You felt a tad sorry for him really when Eleven saw into Billy's past. You saw some of the heartaches that he went through at a younger age. Sure, he's an arsehole, no question about that, but when it came down to it, he was able to fight off control from the Mind Flayer and put himself in harm's way in order to save Eleven's life. Even if you saw his sacrifice coming, it didn't take anything away from the scene at all. He acted the hell out of his role all season long, and him bleeding out, saying sorry to Max for what had happened, was a tear-jerking moment and a fitting send-off to one of this year's MVPs. The Stargirl though, it has to be Eleven. She has an edge naturally with her superpowers, but she isn't invincible. We saw that as she got thrown around by the mind-controlled Billy. That's another thing they were able to do now. Child abuse. In all seriousness, since they are now all teens and much older, the show overall felt darker and more mature. You would have never have seen them getting hit and thrown around like that during the first year, but now they are old enough, you can't put a stop to that now. The Mind Flayer and his flayed were not holding back. It didn't care who you were, and that scene in the sauna was one of the highlights of the season. Eleven, backed by the gang behind her, attempted to trap Billy, who was, as we are all well aware, still controlled by the Mind Flayer. It worked, their little plan, at least for a short time. Then he broke out, and all hell broke loose. If it wasn't for Mike saving Elle, she was in dire trouble there. They may have gone through some ups and downs this year, but we knew they still cared for one another. The whole group of friends are at their best when they are all together, and that moment was essential, as even though Eleven may be the most powerful by a long shot, she still needed Mike, Lucas, Max and Will when the time called for it. Now, I've missed a familiar name off that list. Where is our boy Dustin? Well, he's back with his best bud to reunite everyone's favourite duo of Dustin and Steve, the Hare Harrington. Steve and Dustin's reunion was the most heartening scene of the year. They were the comedic gold last season, and I am also pleased to say none of that has changed. They play off one another extremely well, and their banter is hilarious. The older/younger brother dynamic they've got going on is one of Stranger Things' strongest aspects. Only this year, they weren't alone. They were joined by someone who was more than capable of holding her own in the banter and in the smarts department, that being Steve's co-worker Robin. Robin, played by Maya Hawke, is Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's daughter, so you know where she gets her acting chops from. Never seen her in anything before, I must say, but she worked together with Steve and Dustin extremely well as they dug deep into that Russian transmission. And it is a safe bet that our best pairing wouldn't have gotten anywhere without her. She's fiery, she challenges our duo, and she made herself part of the team immediately to form a formidable trio that were the most fun of any of the groups to follow. What did you make of Erica though? I will be honest, at first she was hella annoying for me, but the more she was around she started to grow on me. She's low down on my list of characters and some of her dialogue was too far-fetched, but she and Dustin did give us a few extra funny moments. It's a shame, however, that Nancy and Jonathan are kind of the outcasts again. I felt that way about their storyline in season 2, and it's more of the same here in terms of the pair investigating disturbances here and there. It sort of leaves them feeling left out of the central circle. Finally, their story started to get going as they rejoined Eleven and the others, but even if their story was a bit disconnected, we needed to know why the Flayed were feeding on those chemicals and whatnot. But in truth, it did lead us to this scene in the hospital, so I don't really care that much. This scene was bloody awesome. To say the CGI was impressive is the understatement of the year. That monster looked incredible during the hospital segment, and so did the massively hulking mind flayer when it was in full view. This year the budget must have skyrocketed in that department because it wasn't hidden in the shadows or darkness most of the time, no. It was in full view with the blood and bones forming into bodies and whatnot. It looked breathtaking. The battle at Starcourt showed us that they weren't afraid of showing off their main monster, and if we get more seasons, surely we will, expect things to get even better. Now, as I've said, the stories complemented one another extremely well, and as Elle and the others dealt with the fallout of the gate being open, it was up to Hopper and Joyce to get that damn thing closed. The poor couple just can't catch a break, but it makes it all the more entertaining because Hopper continues to be my favourite character on the show. Whether he's getting irate at Mike or kicking the crap out of the town mayor, Hopper always brought a smile to my face. On edge? Most definitely, but I laughed out loud constantly in the first couple of episodes when he was having a breakdown about Elle and Mike. Him fretting about them kissing all the time and going to Joyce for advice? Golden, and some of his best moments overall came this year. Honestly, I think David Harbour deserves a ton of credit for his role in this show. He brings out the best with those around him, and he even brought Bowman back for a few episodes once again. He and Alexei were quite a cool partnership actually, and them taking the mick out of Hopper and Joyce never got old. It's a shame Alexei never got to make it out of this season alive. Now, that Russian guy, they were definitely going for an obvious Terminator vibe. It was fun, him never stopping, always hunting Hopper, but he was nothing more than a nemesis to overcome. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't even know who was pulling the Russian strings because it's never a guy like him. He's the one given the task to accomplish on the ground. So who was the one in charge? And that leads me on to the ending. Do you think Hopper is dead or not? Now, rule number 1 of TV is if there's no body, he's probably alive, and that is exactly how I feel for multiple reasons. When you see that machine opening the gateway explode, there's nobody stood next to it, and he didn't get disintegrated when that thing went off. So, where did he go? The only place he could, in my mind, which was through the gate itself. What do you think? My overall verdict for Stranger Things Season 3 is a 9 out of 10. No hesitation whatsoever awarding this season with that. It easily earned it for me. The kids, by naturally growing up, allowed Stranger Things to shift to a much darker tone. More horror aspects in a sense. Yes, it's been dark from the start, but that was more so Hopper and Joyce's storylines. Now there's nothing holding them back. I didn't think there was a weak episode this year, I really didn't. No bizarre one-off one like we had with last year. Each of this year's 8 episodes was segmented beautifully. Still baffles me how this show can so accurately depict the feel for the 80s though. The vibe it gives off is like no other, and it is incredible what they are able to pull off. Starcourt's Mall being the star location for this season. Honestly, I said this before, I think this show is the best around when it comes to interlinking different stories together. They are seamless, and the transitions between one location and another, none of them ever feel out of place. How long did this whole season take place over though? A couple of days, a week tops? Because those kids weren't home once this year. I know they told their parents they were stopping at one another's place, but unlike other years, this season felt like it took place in a very short space of time. High points for this season. Easy. The fight in the sauna between Elle and Billy, the encounter with the monster at the hospital, everything with Steve and Dustin, and pretty much the entire final episode. Many of these young actors and actresses will go on to have bright futures, no doubt, with Millie Bobby Brown most likely, and she's already kinda doing that by branching out into some big budget films. This though was her breakout role and remains her starring role. She brings the world to life, and when paired with Harbour or Montgomery, gave us some special moments this year. Shout out to that scene with Joyce though. No words needed. The emotion in their eyes between the pair sold the entire story for me. Also, Hopper's speech that Elle read towards the very end was very moving, and I'm sure caused plenty of waterworks. Winona Ryder's Joyce may have left town with her family, but you don't think they're getting away from this story that easy. Surely someone or something may bring the band back together again somewhere down the line. I just don't want to wait another year and a half or 2 years for season 4, gosh darn it. But I suppose quality requires time, and if another season is gonna be as good as this, I guess I'll be happy to wait. Grr. Sucks like that our group is now split apart, so the question is, how will they come back together? Will they even at all? Surely they must. I'm assuming Joyce decided to take in Elle as a way of taking over Hopper's duties. Fitting, but it sucks that both Nancy and Jonathan and Eleven and Mike are now forced apart due to the buyers moving. Hopefully there isn't months skipped ahead next season. We've already had a 3-month time jump towards the end of this, so ideally they aren't separated for too long. Hopefully. Now, there doesn't have to be, but if there was a weak point for this season, it would have to be Mayor Klein. Carrie Elwes, I knew I recognised him from somewhere, I just couldn't put my finger on it at first. Then it hit me. Princess Bride, I knew I recognised you, you son of a bitch. Sadly, he wasn't really used all that much. Not enough time was spent with him, and I felt more like he was just the arsehole through and through, and that was all he was meant to be. Also, I do think they maybe tried to force a tad bit too much drama between the teens, but I suppose since they are teens and all, that's kind of what they do, and it still felt believable, even if a tad forced. Dr. Owens also made a brief cameo in that finale, for those who were keen-eyed. I wonder if he will play a more crucial role in the following season, perhaps even tracking down the location of Hopper, presuming he is alive, of course. He is though, I'm not biased at all, am I? Now, while Eleven was definitely the MVP of the season, Billy and Hopper definitely gave her a run for her money. Those three were our top tier, and it just makes me laugh thinking about it. David Harbour showcased his acting range, and having him teaming with Winona Ryder always gave us plenty of laughs, especially when they were yelling at one another. Rest in peace, Alexi. You and Bowman provided an unlikely comedic duo. Overall, the shift in tone, the daring CGI and brilliantly woven stories came together to bring us an incredible story for Season 3 of Stranger Things, and in the end the Mind Flayer was defeated for now, but is it gone for good? Now, just to end it, let's jump back to Hopper. There is no way this show is killing off one of its biggest characters, not a chance. He is too important to the interlinking stories. He is perhaps the most vital one next to Eleven, and to reference that post-credit scene, is he the American in that cell? That would be the obvious answer, that the Russians got him out of the Upside Down in another part of the world, but what about this theory? A little far-fetched, but let's say they don't go with Hopper being that guy in the cell and he did venture into the Upside Down. What if he becomes like a source for the Mind Flayer again, or perhaps like another monster down there? Then what if he gets out or is sent out somehow through a Russian gate and begins to hunt down some of our cast members, or probably 11, who had lost their powers? That would accomplish getting the band back together, though he could possibly be the villain for next year that they need to cure to bring us back the proper Jim Hopper. Yeah, I know in terms of theories it's a little out there, I suppose, but you never know. If he is the American in the cell, though, I will be happy for that. I just want him back to stay. But that answer, I'm afraid, will not be given until Stranger Things comes back for its 4th season. It better get renewed, Netflix. This is your golden child at the moment, so do not disappoint your fans. So, what do you all think about Stranger Things Season 3? What was your favourite episode and moment of this season? Who is your favourite character? And let me know what you think has happened to Hopper down in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And I'll see you on the next one.